Welcome back to the Freedom First podcast. We are your hosts, blain.smothermon
and Eric Kern.
This episode is brought to you in part by Jeffries Firearms Training.
Shooters making shooters. For more information, contact owner Ronnie Jeffries on Instagram at Jeffries Firearms Training.
Are you looking for a wide variety of firearms, ammunition, and equipment? NAG Industries is a premium, local, veteran, and family-owned company in Bakersfield, California. They offer expertise in sales, repair, enhancement, and service of a wide variety of firearms, ammunition, and equipment with a focus on law enforcement and government agencies. For more information, you can visit them on Instagram at in.a.g_industries, through email info@nagindustries.com, or you can give them a call at 661-364-9726. NAG Industries, pride in what we do. Welcome. You have now entered the Freedom First podcast,
where we have conversations with some of the most interesting human beings on the planet.
People who live and breathe in Freedom First mentality. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Freedom First podcast. I'm your host, blain.smothermon, and we're joined by our co-host and my good friend, Eric Kern. We're so grateful and honored that you continue to tune in and listen to the great guests that we bring on and their incredible, inspiring stories. We have another incredible and inspiring story today from a young lady named Fernanda Bello. Maria is a young conservative activist who was born and raised in Venezuela. She actively denounced the human rights violations of Hugo Chavez and Nicolas Maduro while living in Venezuela. At the age of 17, Maria fled her home country due to the destructive democratic socialist ideas that were implemented. Since her arrival in the United States, Maria has continued to be active in the fight against socialism and communism. She was the coalition director for Young Americans Against Socialism, and she has also been featured in PragerU videos, including Americanos. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Miss Maria Fernanda Bello.
Hi, Maria. Thank you for coming on our show. We like to start off our show with the Freedom Minute. So we're going to ask you some rapid fire questions. They're going to be from all different angles, so be ready for that, okay?
Okay.
All right. Our first question is going to be, what is the most memorable moment in your life?
I will say, growing up in Venezuela with all of my friends and all of my family, it's something that I don't have in here. Like, I don't have all of my friends or all my family. So that will be something that I keep in my heart for forever.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And the second question, what is the best or most impactful book you have read?
I will say United States Socialism by Dinesh D'Souza. He actually explains what socialism is, and I don't know if you guys know, but his wife is from Venezuela. So it's actually really good to have that side of, what she lived through into that book.
Right, and you kind of connect with that, being from Venezuela,
right.
And awesome. And
yeah, and everything that's happening in other countries like Nicaragua or Cuba.
Right now, yeah.
It's really good to have a book that will actually tell you the truth about socialism, or not like, oh, Marx is such a great guy, like all of the other books that we have. I think Amazon has these new books for kids talking about Fidel Castro's life and the Che Guevara. So it's really good to have a book that will actually explain what this system is like.
Yeah, it's kind of sad because today you have so many different, I seen on Netflix, there's something called How to Be a Dictator, and all these things that idolized, whether it's, Fidel Castro or Chavez or Maduro or whoever it is.
Funny thing, I saw that, I think 2 days ago. I was just looking through something to watch on Netflix, and I saw that. I was just like, oh my gosh, how to become a dictator. So they're teaching our kids how to become a dictator, that being a dictator is so good. So I will probably be watching that just because, sorry about that.
No, it's fine.
I'll probably be watching that just because I want to see what they have to tell us,
Yeah, I started watching it. It was kind of weird. I'm not gonna
Oh,
lie.
It's probably an interesting one, you know,
Yeah.
what not to do.
Right.
So our third question is going to be, what are your future ambitions? And where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years?
So probably like 5 years ago, I will tell you that I will see myself running for Congress or running for something in politics. But politics is so corrupt. Even though I have been dealing with politics since I was a kid, because my mom used to work in politics. So we all go through that phase that we don't know what we want to be when we are older and stuff. And I decided that I wanted to be a politician just because I saw how my mom used to work for a politician, and I saw politics as a way of helping people. That's how I still see politics, just a way to help people. So 5 years ago, I would probably tell you that I wanted to run for Congress. Even like 2 years ago, I was thinking about it, but I think I don't want to do that. I just see myself helping people. I have a dream, and this dream is building a nonprofit that just probably doesn't feel, it's not just about socialism, but it's just about human rights violation. That's something actually I have been working on for the past few months. So this project is coming out hopefully by the end of summer. But yeah, that's what I see myself, just helping people.
Wow, that's exciting. That's super exciting.
I look forward to seeing what that becomes.
Thank you.
Fourth question, if you could sit down and have a conversation with anyone throughout the history of the world, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Does it have to be someone that had like an impact into, or can it be like something more personal?
It could be whoever.
Anyone.
So I will say my grandparents. Funny thing is, my grandparents, they used to work for the oil company in Venezuela. And my grandma used to go for Chavez. And when I started doing politics, my grandma was really mad at me because I was against Chavez. I will tell her, Grandma, if he wins again, I'm going to have to leave the country. And she's like, oh, come on, like, stop it, blah, 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 blah. And then now she calls me. She's like, I wish I would have listened to you before. Like, things are so bad in here. Like, my grandparents, they had a really good job. I remember as a child, my grandparents would do grocery shopping for their house, grocery shopping for their farm, grocery shopping for my house, for everyone in the family, like every house in the family. And now they can barely eat. My grandma have to rent out her house in the city just because I don't have money to eat. So I will say, I will sit down with my parents and tell them, look, this is what's about to happen in a few years. So if this actually happens, you're going to lose your grandkids because they will have to leave the country for a better life.
Right. Is your whole family still in Venezuela?
Yes.
So you're the only one that came to the United States? Wow.
Yes.
Oh,
My dad actually lives in Puerto Rico. My dad's a plastic surgeon. So when I was a baby, my dad got a really good job here because of his... so he took that job and he became an American citizen, and that's why I'm here.
That's awesome. I look forward to hearing more of the story and going more into
deeper dive. We're excited. We've been excited about this one.
So I have the final question is going to be, if you were elected president of the United States, what would be the first thing you do?
So I will say build the wall. That would be one of the first things. We have seen what's going on in the border crisis right now, and we see all of these human traffickings. We see people getting into our country that we have no idea what these people do in, for example, Mexico. Like we don't have any background on these people. We don't know what they're going to do to our country. I am pro legal immigration because that's how my dad got here. He was a legal immigrant, and then he became a American citizen because he did all the process that he had to do. So I would say we all have to do the same. I did it. My dad did it. So why, we have all these people coming through our borders, and it's not just that. Like, we have kids going through the borders, and you ask them, where are your parents? And they have no idea. So the first thing I will do is just build that wall, just to protect our children, and not just our American children, but children from other countries.
Right.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's crazy just to hear, whether it's border patrol agents or whoever it is. Like, it's not just people from South America or Mexico. We're seeing people from China. We're seeing
Venezuela.
people from Syria, all over the world now come to south of the border, whether it's Tijuana or whatever, and then they're crossing. So they're coming from all over the world: Syria, China, and obviously Venezuela as well.
Yeah, it's insane.
Awesome. Well, thank you for answering those questions, Maria. And I just want to kind of get in your story. So at the age of 17, you fled your home country, Venezuela, due to the destruction of socialism and the socialist ideologies that were implemented by, Chavez. And then obviously Maduro continues some of those as well. So tell us your story growing up in Venezuela, and how did you eventually flee the country and come to America? So where did it all
Uh,
start?
so as a child, we never see when things are going bad. Like we're a child, we don't know what's going on. So I remember as a child, everything was, we were happy and we could play outside with our friends and all of this nice stuff that, children should go through. Um, but I remember one day I was going to my neighbor's house. I was literally in front of my house. And then two guys came in a bicycle. They had a gun and they pointed that gun at me and they asked me to give them my phone. I had my phone in my hands. I had my backpack with my laptop. They only took my phone. And I was probably 12. I was just so traumatized because I didn't know what was happening. That's when you start noticing that things are going kind of bad in the country. And that's why I started understanding things better. My mom was involved in politics. And again, I always saw my mom doing really good things for the city, and I loved that. But then I started getting involved in politics. My mom didn't want me to. She didn't want me to get involved in politics, but that's what I love doing. Like I saw my mom helping people. I was like, that's what I want to do too. So once I got involved, I just loved politics. And I think it was a personal thing because I felt that if I did something and if we would have taken the country away from Chavez, like we would have done something, I will have stayed home and I didn't have to leave my family. So I got involved in politics. I was so involved in politics that I was like, how we have all of, like in America, we have these kids sneaking out of their house to go to a party or
Right.
something. I was
Sure.
sneaking out to go do campaigns against Chavez and Maduro. That was insane.
Wow.
I was
Wow.
like 15, and I had like afternoon classes for chemistry because I wasn't really good at chemistry. So I had these afternoon classes, and one day I will tell my mom, "Oh yeah, I'm going to chemistry class or anything or soccer practice because I was really involved in sports too." But I will actually lie and go to do campaigns. So I was lying to my parents that I was in soccer practice, but I was actually doing campaigns. That was my thought that if I did something, I will stay home, which didn't happen. But then I decided that I wanted to come to the United States because I didn't see myself in Venezuela. I didn't see that I was going to have a future. I didn't see that I was going to have a life. So that's when I decided that it was better for me to leave the country. So I graduated from high school and I came to the United States. Again, my dad's an American citizen, and because of that, I got to come here the legal way. And now, I mean, I have been an American citizen for such a long time because of my dad. So that's how I got to America. And once I got here, I didn't want anything to do with politics. I actually didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to talk about my story because I still have family back home and I was scared that something could happen to them. And then in 2019, I just got really involved in politics and I have been since then.
Yeah. So kind of, like what was the process? You said you came here legally. So what was that process? And what was, I guess, the initial step you had to take in order to, get here eventually?
To me, it was kind of easy because I was an American citizen and I just took a plane and came here. So I didn't have that problem with like other people back home that they have to, like we talked about earlier, that they have to just go through the border and they're illegally here. I didn't have to go through that whole thing, thank God. And it was all thanks to my dad. So it was really easy for me to come here. I didn't know English, so I have to like start like go to school to learn English in here in the United States. So it was kind of like a good process.
So you already had your citizenship because of your dad's work, or okay,
No, yeah, my dad has been American citizen for a long time
okay,
because yeah.
got it, got it.
That's awesome. So kind of tell us what Venezuela was like, for the time that you were there. What are some things that you saw that were good? Some of the things you saw that were bad? Just the overall experience itself.
Well, one of the good things that I was with my family and I was with my friends. I never thought that I had to leave them. And then one of the bad things is that it's still so high in Venezuela. Again, at 12, I got a gun pointed at me for the first time. The second time I was 16, and that was me just leaving school with my little brother and my little sister. Again, I got robbed. They took my phone
Wow.
It's
for the
crazy.
second time. But then I had my brother and sister, and they were 11 and 12. And so, I didn't think about my life at that point. I was just scared that something could happen to them. But that was one. Crime is so high in Venezuela. The fact that you have to do a huge line to get into a supermarket to do grocery shopping, and it's not like you're gonna go into the grocery store and just buy whatever you want. No, it will be just what's in there. Like if there's just rice in there, that's all you get. If it's just chicken, that's all you get. It's not like when you go to a supermarket here in the United States, you can buy whatever you want whenever you want. Like you don't have any restrictions or anything like that, but in Venezuela you do. So that was like another thing. It's just the fact that I couldn't go out because I was scared that something could happen to me as well. So it was just a bunch of things that made me just realize that was not the life I wanted to live.
So about what age did you start realizing? I know you said at 12 years old you got a gun pointed at you. So what age did you start realizing like there is a problem here?
Probably when I was 12, because then mom was working in politics. So I remember asking my mom all this bunch of questions, and she will say, I will ask her. I remember the first question I asked my mom about her job is like, Mom, why don't you support the president? What's happening that you don't support the president, or the candidate that you work for does not support the president? And she will tell me it's because Chavez is doing bad things, and that's why we don't support him. I mean, I was a child. Obviously, I wasn't going to understand politics. Sure. But then I just realized that, I was in high school, and my history teacher, she was with the government because she would have like a backpack with Chavez face. She would have a keychain with something that said that she would support the government. And I loved her. I loved my history teacher. She was so nice. She was really nice. And the type of kid that, I was. I was the type of kid in high school that I didn't like numbers. I hated numbers. Probably that's why I chose political science for a major. And
yeah, same here.
Yeah, but I love geography, history, or everything that has to do with reading. So I was really good at history. I would just read once and I will know everything for my test. And no one in my class liked my professor, but I liked her, but I just didn't want to tell her, hey, you're wrong because you're supporting someone that's not going to support you in a few years. And I was scared that, she will probably fail me. I will get an F instead of an A. But yeah, that's when I just started realizing that people will support someone that years before he got to be the president of Venezuela, he did something really bad, which was the 1992 coup, that he tried to kill the president that was in power at that moment. So to me, it's just to realize.
He went to jail like 2 years over that, didn't he?
Yeah. It just to me to realize that you're seeing someone that did something really bad in a few years before. He killed hundreds of people in the capital, and you're voting for him. I mean, I'm pretty sure that it was just different, but that moment, probably people thought that he was going to be someone really good for the country, which he wasn't. But yeah.
How big is the divide between the sides of politics? Is it like over here to where it's like, almost 50-50, or is it a point where a lot of people support the government, or what do the numbers look like over there?
Well, I will say that, before, probably when I was there, it was more people supporting the government than it was with the opposition. And probably when Maduro got into power, the numbers changed. Like now we have more people on the opposition side than in the government side. But still, they have the power in everything. So if there is elections or something in Venezuela, they're going to still win no matter what.
There's a lot of, I would imagine, like in the United States at times, but there's a lot of propaganda, right? So some of those numbers were inflated. I know that Chavez, in before 2013, and then when Maduro gets in 2013 up until now, like you see some of these crazy numbers, like 80% of the population supports Maduro, but it's like if you look at the protests, that's definitely not the case.
Yeah, but then again, we don't have a really good opposition because the opposition is negotiating with the government. So it's like until we don't get those people out and we realize that we need people that actually care about Venezuela and actually care about the people, we're never gonna, it's never going to stop. It will never going to stop being a socialist country. And, I don't know if you have read this, but when you could be a socialist country for the first 21 years, then it starts in communism. We can see Cuba right now has been under the Castros, and now this new guy, it has been a communist country for
62 years. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not easy to get rid of the government. I always say that to get rid of the government, we first have to educate Venezuelans, because it doesn't matter if we have another type of government that will promise them the same things. Venezuelans are used to have free stuff. So I think we'll have to start by educating them and telling them, hey, this is not what you want. Because it doesn't matter if someone from the opposition comes, the opposition is as corrupt as the government.
Sure. So if education is the key, and I totally agree with you. I think, I know education is the foundation of, all successful societies.
Right.
Where do you think the solution is for Venezuela? Because I know right now there's a lot of kids out of school still because of the, the high crime rates and the famine and everything else. So what do you think the solution is to getting kids back into school and then fixing the education, problem, educating these kids in an unbiased way?
Yeah, well, one of the things that, for example, my sister and my brother, they're in university right now, but because of the coronavirus, I mean, it's different in here than in Venezuela. Like in here, we have access to Wi-Fi and we have computers and we can have our classes online. But back home, there is no Wi-Fi. So it's like you're not going to spend a lot of money, and it doesn't even work. You're not going to spend a lot of money or time trying to connect into a computer to be able to have an online class when it's not going to work. So like my brother's not taking classes right now because he said once we go back to normality, that's when I'm going to go back to college campus. My sister used to go to a private university, but it got so expensive that she couldn't do it anymore. So for example, a semester will be $1,000, and in a month that will change to $2,000. So it's like it's like the inflation and all of those stuff are making it's kids realize, do I want to go to school or do I want to work to be able to eat? So one of the things will be getting rid of the government. That's the first thing. And once the new government comes, they will have to find a way to help all. I mean, it's just so many things in Venezuela right now that I don't even know where to start. But one of the things is getting rid of the government and trying to get all of these kids to be able to survive and go to school and probably have good teachers. Professors are not going to school because whatever they spend going to teach a class, it's what they can use to be able to eat for a day.
Right.
Really?
Yeah, I was watching something the other day, and this is, I think, back in 2020, and a lot of the women and girls were actually, selling their bodies and going to Colombia because they.
Too.
What's that?
I don't know if you saw that they were trying to like whoever had like long hair, they will cut it and they will sell their hair to be able to have some money to eat.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly like that. And then, going to Colombia and these different places to, prostitute themselves because they had to survive. They had to send money back to their family. And I mean, that's heartbreaking. And that's not happening just in Venezuela, but in other countries as well, around the world under these socialist ideologies.
That's when we go back to education, because I get it. You don't have money to eat. You don't have money to be able to send your family. But why to prostitute? Like, why do you need to be a prostitute?
Right.
You can just get a job in a restaurant or something, or work 2 jobs, because many Americans do work 2 to 3 jobs. And when you're in school, in university, I have had friends that they have 2 jobs and they still go to school. So why is the solution to sell your body, to have someone else touch you?
Right.
So that's when we go back to education. Wouldn't you rather just to be able to have a normal job or a restaurant where you can become a supervisor or become a manager, but they just choose the easy way?
Right. And and I mean, sometimes, it's just sad to see. I was like, it's definitely, it's definitely sad.
Maybe
So
I'm just too conservative.
yeah. I want to back up and kind of talk about the roots of Venezuela and, where all this started. I know we could kind of point the finger at Chavez or Maduro, but if you look at it, it kind of goes back even further back to the 50s and 60s. And, they start nationalizing the oil in Venezuela. Because if you look at Venezuela, as you know, it has the largest oil reserves in the world.
Yeah,
so it should be a very wealthy and prosperous country, but it hasn't. Why is that? Where did it all start in your mind?
So at one point, I know that it was actually bigger than not Syria.
Saudi Arabia, I
Saudi
believe.
Arabia.
Yeah.
Saudi Arabia. So it's like at one point Venezuela had more money than Saudi Arabia. So
Right.
Venezuela was the richest country in the whole Latin America. But I know that even before Chavez, we have like a couple of presidents,
Right.
which some people might like them, some people might not. But I always talk to my grandparents, and they said that when they had in the 50s and the 60s, when they had these presidents, my grandparents will say that no one will ever come to your house and rob you or do something bad to you because they always had protections. Even though these people were dictators, at least people feel safe. I mean, there was no crime like there is right now in Venezuela, but I think that all of these people probably knew that there was something in Venezuela that they could kind of take advantage of, and that was oil. And that's when they all started to destroy the country. I don't think Venezuela have had a really good president that actually care about the people or even the resources that they have in the country, because Venezuela doesn't not only have oil, like we have pretty much all the seasons. We have there's this state that snows in there. It stays there. It's hot. We have desert. We have a bunch of things that mines. We have a lot of resources that we can kind of like get out and have a productive country. But I don't think we have had a really good president that actually care about instead of the people, they just care about power and money.
Right. And kind of going off that, we see Chavez. I mean, Chavez was pretty popular early on because he promises, all this stuff to the poor, and they do, and he did deliver at the very beginning. But do you think they just over relied on oil and didn't diversify the country? And then because the oil prices were like over $100 a barrel at the time, and Venezuela is just doing very well economically, but that's kind of all they had, right? Like they weren't diversifying; they're exporting everything in. Do you think that was a big downfall?
So for people, I know that Chavez at the beginning he promised a lot of free things, and people were like, okay, then it's like at some point Chavez even said that he was helping. If we had a minor that had a baby, Chavez will give them a monthly salary for saying like that. And if they had another kid, he will give them like, for example, like if you had a kid and you were a minor, Chavez will give you $300 for that baby, and then if you had like just to help you out, and then you had another baby, then another $300. So people got just relying. They just understood that why do I have to go to work if the government is giving me everything? But I think that they just felt like they could do anything with the oil, and it was all gonna last forever, and they were gonna be in power forever, and they were just gonna, like you said, rely on oil until now it's like, what do we do now? Oil's
Right.
nothing.
The oil drops, and
there's no resources. There's nothing to get out of Venezuela because they had done whatever they wanted with it. So now they're just like, okay, what do we do?
Are they even drilling any oil in Venezuela? There's not,
To be
right?
honest, I don't think so. I don't even know. Like you hear so many. You cannot, if you want to know about Venezuela, don't go to the media. Don't. You're never gonna find out. You just have to go through social media and see what your friends back home are posting, or if you have family back home, you just ask them. But there's no good resource that will tell you exactly what's happening in Venezuela. Or I don't think in any socialist or communist country. I think what's happening around Cuba, I think they were censoring the media, the channels, so people wouldn't see what's actually happening in the country.
Yeah, it's kind of scary to think about that. They're kind of putting this mask over the country and not letting you see what's actually going on. All the corruption and everything that's just taking place, and we'll never know because of the fact that we're, I don't have any aspirations to go to Venezuela anytime soon, so I'm not going to actually see what's going on there. And that's nothing against Venezuela, but that's So it's kind of sad to think of the fact that I'm not going to know what's actually going on there unless I have to actually dig and see from people that are actually there. So
there's actually some travel vloggers that have been recently. If you go on YouTube and follow them, and they've done a pretty good job of showing what's going on, but they've also show like the beautiful side of Venezuela, the things a lot of people don't see. So I thought that was kind of cool. I kind of follow some of these different people, and you don't always see that.
Yeah, I saw them, and I mean, it's really nice to see, the good side of your country. But
sure.
At the same time, it's like, why do I even want to see this? I can't even go back because something's gonna happen to me or my family. So since I have been speaking out against the government, I don't think I want to go back home because of I don't want to my family in danger or myself.
Speaking of Cuba, and you kind of correct me if I'm wrong, there's like a propaganda network. I believe Cuba and Venezuela share. Is it how do you pronounce it? Telesur? It's like
Telesur.
Telesur. So
Mhm.
they share that propaganda network, if I'm not mistaken. I know I was kind of doing some research, and that network is, going out into Cuba as well as Venezuela. I'm not sure where else, but if you go back in 2017, 2018, 2019, those propaganda networks were blaming the United States for like intentionally making the socialist society look bad to the people, like the propaganda. And I was like, wow, that connection between, look at Cuba, Venezuela, and if you look at their governments, somewhat similar.
Yeah. Remember that the government in Venezuela, and going back to Chavez was really good friends with Fidel Castro. And then once Fidel's died, they kept the same with
That's
Raul
right,
Castro.
yeah.
So they were really good friends. Even Chavez died in Cuba, like when he was getting like really, really sick, that he said, if something happens to me, choose Maduro or vote for Maduro. He went to Cuba. So instead of dying in Venezuela, Chavez died in Cuba because probably he didn't trust the Venezuelans to take care of him.
That's crazy that you don't even have that faith in your own country, that you're the one that's running and you're the one that's created.
And yeah. So he went and he died in Cuba. So he went to Cuba for his last few months. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. That's my cat.
No, you're fine. So, I mean, you see so many similarities, and a lot of them, they do have these Marxist ideas where they've read and they've studied Karl Marx and all these communist and socialist ideas. You see it in whether it's Maduro, Chavez, Castro, and a lot of these people idolize Castro as well, like you said. So
Yeah.
it's not, there's no
connection.
surprise what we're looking at and what we're seeing.
So I kind of wanted to talk a little bit more about your nonprofit and what you're working on and so let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I'm not gonna say the name because it's not like really ready yet to launch, but it will be hopefully by the end of this next month probably. So hopefully by the end of summer, it will be all good to go before fall. So I have worked for so many nonprofits, and I've come to realize that if you want them to do what you would like them to do, just do it yourself. We have so many nonprofits out there that all they talk about is socialism this, socialism that. Look at Venezuela, look at Cuba, but they even use like my story, for example, for their benefits, like for their nonprofits benefits or for their own benefits, just to get famous or to get followers. Actually, I kind of talked about this a little bit in another podcast that I did like 2 weeks ago with a friend. I'm just so tired of people taking advantage of my story and using my story and using my people's suffering. Actually, there have been so many videos and pictures of people. It's not funny. Like, people are saying, so this is your pet in capitalism, they show their pet, and this is your pet in socialism, and they show something like it's dead. That is not funny, and that's actually not the case. In Venezuela, we don't eat our dogs or our cats. Like, I don't think I will ever be able to eat my own cat. So I just see that so many people are just taking advantage of my story and my friends' stories or other people's stories, and they're just trying to get followers or trying to benefit themselves.
So what exactly is your nonprofit gonna entail?
Yeah. I just wanted to
No, yeah,
kind of touch into why I wanted to start a nonprofit. So what we're gonna do is do human rights violation. It won't be only socialism. There's so many things out there that we need to talk about what no one does, like human trafficking. Why is the Second Amendment a good thing? Socialism, communism, the pro-life movement. So that will be a focus on my nonprofit, the human rights violations.
Right. And do you see a lot of people? I mean, obviously you're talking about your story, people taking advantage of your story, and that leading now to your nonprofit. But do you see a lot of people in America, especially, that say, you share your story and like they don't believe you, or they say, well, that's not going to happen here, or like what do you hear in America, especially?
So last time I did a speech, it was in Texas back in February. So I was getting ready to, like do put my PowerPoint out and, like kind of like getting ready to speak. And then my whole audience, they were from the Young Democratic Socialist group. I think that's their name.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a group in that school I went to, St. Houston University. So that was my whole entire audience.
Wow.
I was talking blah 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 blah, and then before I start speaking, I put like a presentation out, like this documentary that I did. So I started speaking blah blah blah, and then when I was done and I was just waiting for questions and answers, um, we had all of these kids saying, "Well, Maria, I did my research, and Venezuela is actually not a socialist country. Venezuela is a capitalist country, and this is all happening because of the U.S." Blah blah. And I was, oh my gosh, like seriously, I was like, you're just taking your research into something you just went into Google to check that. Probably you just went into an article from your organization that says Venezuela is not a socialist country. This is all done by capitalism, blah blah blah. Capitalism bad, socialism good. So all this gets like, and then they asked me other questions like the coronavirus in Mexico. I was like, that has nothing to do with my story in the first place. And then one of the kids that he is from the Young Conservative of Texas. They're actually the group that invited me to speak. I was like, well, actually, I'm not Mexican, so I cannot tell you anything about that. But my friend over here is Mexican, so he can actually talk to you a little bit more about that. Also, that has nothing to do with my story. So it was a whole thing. And then we were done, like, so we just went out, we wanted to go eat. And these people literally followed me. And they kept asking me questions, and they were like, "What do you think of the minimum wage going to 15?" I said, "Well, I don't think it's a good idea. Do you think it's a good idea?" "Well, not 15, but maybe $14." I was, "What's the difference? $1?"
Yeah.
So it's just like these kids are brainwashed. And then I had a picture. I think you guys have heard of Young Americans for Liberty, right? They're the libertarians group. So I went to one of their conferences back in 2019 when I was starting politics in here. I got invited, so yeah, I just went. And then I had a picture, and he's like, "Well, I looked at your Instagram, and then you had a picture with actually Dave Rubin." He's like, "You had a picture with a libertarian, and you're saying you're conservative." I was like, "Oh my god,
They're stalking you and checking all your stuff out.
this is insane!" So
they must go and watch a teleseries. That's what it sounds like. That's their.
Yeah, they're watching propaganda networks.
Yeah, so they pretty much told me that my story was not real. What I was saying was not true. That I never went through anything. I said, well, my family's like back in Venezuela. They're still going through the same thing. And actually, my family doesn't have anything to eat. That's why my grandparents had to rent out their house and get strangers into their house so they can have some money to eat. So you're telling me what I'm saying is not true. So some people say, oh yeah, socialism sounds really good in theory. It doesn't. Because when you look at it, actually, it's like taking your company or taking your land just for the government, because the government feels like, oh, today I'm going to see what land or what farm I want to take from people that actually work so hard to get it. Like my grandparents, they have had their farms for 20 plus years. And my grandma got really sick in 2018, and my grandparents had to leave the farm, go to the city. And when they came back to see the farm, everything was gone. Someone got into a farm, they stole everything. They killed my horses, they took our cow, like they took all our animals, and everything was gone.
Wow.
So people are not respecting private property in Venezuela. That does not exist. So maybe in any minute the government will say, oh, so no one's taking care of this farm. This is going to be property of the government now.
Yeah, and it's if you attack it from because the left or whatever you want to call it, they always want to attack things from the moral standpoint. And I know Ben Shapiro talks about this a lot. Like if you want to like go back at them, talk about the moral aspect of it. Like it's against the 10 commandments, thou shalt not steal. You don't steal things that aren't yours. And that's basically, I mean, in some ways what communism or socialist is. It's, taking things back and for the government and then
so
redistributing them.
We have all of these kids that they're socialists, but then they have an iPhone.
Yeah.
They go to Starbucks. I'm pretty sure like 95% of all of them, they will go to Starbucks every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
They will have iPhone because they don't use Android. So they will have iPhones, they will have a MacBook, and all of this stuff probably from money that their parents give them, or probably some type of assistance from the government. I don't know, but it's funny because the capitalist kids, like us, for example, we work really hard to be able to buy our phones or to buy our computers. And that was the other thing in that documentary I did that I showed them before. There was this socialist, and she was talking how she works at Verizon, and she thinks it's really crazy that people will spend like $1,000 on a phone. You probably have that $1,000 phone, and if I work really hard for it, why shouldn't I have my $1,000 phone, my $2,000 phone, whatever it is?
Right. And I guess what would you tell these people? I know you. I seen a video. I think you had asked Dennis Prager the question,
Yeah.
and I thought it was pretty good. And what do you
There's
tell these?
actually there is a video I did. Have you seen PragerU? They have something called Americanos. It's like a show that they
Yeah.
have. So there is actually an episode coming out with my story.
Oh, nice.
So that's
awesome.
gonna
I
be
look forward to that.
Thank you.
So what would you tell these, young, I don't know, I want to call them young socialist supporting people that,
Just so we don't insult their feelings,
yeah,
It's a safe space here.
yeah. So what would you tell these people that, you've lived it, you've experienced it, you have family, obviously, that lives in Venezuela still, you understand it, you're not watching the propaganda networks, you're seeing it in real life.
Yeah.
Yet these people are coming from, watching this or that and all this propaganda on CNN or Fox and whatever it is, and they're saying, "Well, that's not true. You didn't see that." What do you tell these people?
So I always, when I think about this, it's kind of hard to, because I don't like conflict. I don't like people going after me. It's like, oh, you didn't leave that, blah blah, and they're just trying to get a reaction out of me. I'm just like,
Right.
whatever. I don't care what you're saying. But I would say just do your research. I know they went to Venezuela, actually not even a week ago, the Young Democratic Socialists. They went to Venezuela and they had a meeting with Maduro. I said, well, what if you go out? You're not just in the president's house. What if you go out in the city and you walk? And so pretty sure all these kids are Americans. Just like when someone that's going to rob you and they see that you're not a Venezuelan, they're going to come after you to see, well, oh, this is a pity Yankee, like Chavez would call them, or a gringo. Oh, let's see what we can get from them. So I know they were in Venezuela just a few weeks ago. So to me, it's just like, do your research and see what you're getting yourself into and what you're getting your country into. Funny thing to me is that how all of these young socialists, they all hate America so much, but they're not leaving America. They will never leave America. So to me, it's insane. So it's like, do your research. If you don't think that I'm being, and actually telling the truth, then what if we go to my country? Just spend a whole week over there. See if you can find something to eat. See how crime is. See if you can live happily ever after, because I think that's what we're trying to do. So my thing is just do your research and listen to those people that have actually gone through that.
Yeah.
So do you think that the individuals who went down to Venezuela, you don't think they went down to downtown and actually saw what the life was like over there? And
I don't think so.
Do you think it would have changed their mind on what their perspective is?
I will hope so. I think that's what you wish for. I will think that once they see something, they're like, it's like me when I asked my mom why she didn't support Chavez, and she told me because he's doing bad things. It's the same thing to me, that they will go downtown and say, what's happening here? Why this doesn't look like happily ever after, like they say on the books, like Karl Marx said, like Chavez promised, like Che Guevara promised. Why isn't this happily ever after? Like just Maduro told me in the president's house.
Right. I mean, yeah, if you go visit Maduro and anyone that's involved with him, you're going to see it's going to look real nice and everything's going to seem like it's going well. But I mean, you go downtown, you go to the slums and, these other places. It's not like that.
And they have so much money that they buy a whole entire neighborhood for themselves. So it's like they only have one house out there, which is their house, and they just buy the whole entire neighborhood, so no one bothers them.
Do they? I know, a lot of countries do, especially communist countries. Do they kind of, do they allow cameras and stuff, or do they kind of suppress that? Like, especially because tourists aren't really allowed, right? Unless you have like a work visa right now in Venezuela.
I think if you're coming from the United States and you're an American, you do need a visa to get in the country. I don't know what the process is like to get that visa, but that's all I know. If you're an American, that's how you. But I don't think Americans do want to go there.
Right.
But I will say that they probably are just like sneaking a camera out there and
Yeah.
trying to get all what's actually happening in the country.
Right. Yeah. So, as we kind of start, going to the end of this podcast, just a few years ago, I think 2018, the poverty rate's 90% in Venezuela. And I think it's gotten a little better now, maybe. But still, for our listeners, and it's pretty crazy, can you explain in simple terms how high the inflation rate is in Venezuela? Like the hyperinflation, because it's crazy. Can you explain it to the
So
listeners?
to make it easier, it's minimum wage in Venezuela is $6 a month right now. So if you're working in a restaurant or something like that, that's all you get a month. So how do you live with only $6 a month?
Yeah,
It's insane.
I think that's the easiest way to actually explain.
Yeah, that's no way to live, and obviously you're never gonna have that happily ever after, that that pursuit of happiness, I guess you would say. It's kind of really sad to see, and I hope that whatever you do, I know you're working towards your nonprofit and looking to improve things, and I truly believe you will make a difference. So that's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And what are because Venezuela is a beautiful country, beautiful people. There's a lot of prosperity that could happen. That the oil reserves are tremendous, the biggest in the world. So there's a lot of potential, and you touched on it a little bit earlier about getting rid of the government. But what's it gonna take? And are the people? Do they have a positive outlook on what's going? What the future looks like? I know your parents and your family still live there. What's their outlook on it? And what do they think needs to happen to, improve the living conditions in Venezuela?
I will think it will take a bunch of brave people to be able to take back our country. I have so many friends out there that are still fighting for it. But, as we talked about the Second Amendment, it's not going to happen because, it will take a long time. The thing is, people don't have anything to defend themselves. So if we have, I don't know if you have seen videos of the government, the military, or the police killing kids with their guns, killing people our age, because they're out there trying to protest against the government, but then they are the only ones that have the guns. So while we have that, I don't think it will happen because, again, people don't have anything to defend themselves. So if you don't have anything to defend yourself, it's pointless.
You're not going to have a voice. They always say that the Second Amendment, supports the First. And I did have one more question before we get to our final segment. With what's going on right now, we're seeing inflation going on in the United States right now. What similarities do you see from the socialist, I guess, beginning of the socialist implementation in Venezuela and kind of what's going on right now in the United States? Do you see any similarities?
The first thing will be they're trying to force the vaccine to all of us. So that's the starting of all of it. When the government is forcing something on you, that's a dictatorship. That's how it starts. And then I know that in some states they're trying to get rid of the Second Amendment. So that will be the two things that I kind of see with Venezuela, kind of like the start of all of it.
Great.
Eric, anything else before we wrap this up?
That's all. It's been great information that you've given us, and I've truly enjoyed this show and learning a lot. It's good to know that someone's fighting for them over there, on this end, and we'll continue to support the fight as well. Is there anything that we can do to help out as far as your nonprofit? I know you said you haven't done your name yet. We'll keep an eye out for that. Is there anything that we can do to help out?
Yeah, we have the name. I just don't want to give too many details, just because I want it just to be a surprise, because I don't think many people are expecting me to actually do this. But once it gets out, I know that there will be a lot of information out there on how people can reach out to us or how they can help. We just do it because we want to fight for our country. We want to fight for America. And we obviously want to help the people of my country back home. And that's one of the other reasons why I started, because it's like, if I don't do anything, no one's going to do it.
Yeah.
But that's how everything started. But once it's out, I'm pretty sure you're all gonna see it.
Yeah, well, let us know, and we'll help push it out as well.
Thank you.
Whatever we could do to help you and in your fight against, helping, Venezuela and Venezuelans, and also what's going on in America with, the border crisis and everything else. So thank you for that. And are there anything else you would tell our listeners, anywhere they could go to get, good unbiased information, anywhere they could, any books they could read or anything they could do or read or look at?
Yeah, one of the really good books that I will say, as I said in the beginning, will be United States of Socialism by denounced. And one of the person that actually has kind of like has had an impact on my life and seeing that person has actually done something really good, it will be denounced. He has done a really good job on telling people what actually socialism and communism is. I know PragerU has done so many really good videos about it in Prager. So I will say PragerU, denounced. He has a really good podcast actually. Mm-hmm. So I will say follow those two, and you will probably get really good information.
Awesome. And Eric, do you want to?
Yeah. So our final
little segment.
Our final segment is the Freedom Fighter of the Week. So it's basically going to be someone that you tell us about, or that you give recognition to, that has made an impact in your life. So who is your Freedom Fighter of the Week, Maria? I
know that so many people will say, "Oh, I don't know, Dan Crenshaw or Prager." They will always name someone, someone actually has had an impact into everyone. But I will say my mom, because of my mom, it's how I started in politics. And I will give a lot of credit to myself for being able to speak up. I know that many people, they will always name someone else and they will never give themselves credit. But to me, it's really important to say, hey, you did this because you worked really hard for it. So I will say my mom started all of this, and then I continue with it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much. And
thank you.
Anything we could do to help support you and push your message, we're more than happy to do. Thank you so much for coming on the show and joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we've been I know we've been trying to put this together for a while, and we'll definitely have to do it again.
Yeah, well, I'm happy that it worked out this time, and thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Maria.
All right, Maria, thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to this episode. We appreciate you and your support of the show. Please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and leave feedback on Apple Podcasts.